So now looking at applying PRINCE2 tailoring. Key message: tailoring as a PRINCE2 principle is mandatory. So if an organisation does not consider tailoring, it is not using PRINCE2. You've heard that message from me before, and it's worth repeating. But here you need to ensure that the tailoring of PRINCE2 adds value. That term has become a bit of a cliche, but here it is really important to make sure that the tailoring has familiar roles, terminology and processes, and in doing so clarifies project governance and facilitates team working right across an organisation or a corporation. So when tailoring individual elements of PRINCE2, check the impact on any other elements. Here we're talking about not just processes and themes, but details within them to ensure that they all remain consistent. An example here might be reporting. If you're tailoring PRINCE2 for the use on agile projects, then it's important to adapt and adopt the way in which agile communicates both within the team itself and upwards and outwards to other roles. In a similar way, asking the project manager for a monthly highlight report may be inappropriate where the specialist products are being created via an agile framework. Indeed, it may be that the project board needs to visit the development team themselves rather than the other way around. So effective tailoring requires skills, experience and judgment, and there is no single right tailoring solution for a given project. Just like project management itself, it's a mix of art and science. So people in organisations with a high level of project management capability or maturities are likely to find tailoring easier than those in less mature organisations. Yes, that happens to be a fact of life. Because you see, PRINCE2 is a web network of interlinking parts. Themes are used in processes, techniques are used to bring themes to life. Individuals fulfill project roles and create management products. Another reason why this point up here is important when tailoring individual elements, because of the holistic nature of the PRINCE2 methodology. Management products, they're those in Appendix A, can be split or combined into as many documents or information sources as needed, as I've mentioned previously. Each product description includes wide-ranging quality criteria, hence they need to be tailored to suit the project's circumstances. I have done some consultancy with an organisation that wanted to blend PRINCE2 with Scrum, and some of the ideas we discussed was how to harness what Scrum calls user stories to what PRINCE2 calls product description, and I advised them that they're really one and the same thing, and therefore consistent information needed to be included within each. Now, a project manager may need to use a product naming terminology such as PMI's project management plan. I've mentioned this previously as well, instead of the PID used within PRINCE2. And yet another example here is the use of the project closure report, as PMI would have it, instead of the end project report. Both are very similar in terms of their purpose and content, but again, for consistency, the product naming terminology should be consistent. Okay, continuing with applying PRINCE2 tailoring, the project manager is responsible for identifying and documenting the level of tailoring for the project. Now, this is documented within the project initiation documentation. It's then reviewed by the stakeholders, and as by now you will know, it's approved by the project board as part of transitioning from the initiation stage into the first delivery stage. So both the project board and the project manager may be advised by project assurance. Now, the project board are responsible for their own project assurance. However, of the three roles concerned, executive, senior user and senior supplier may delegate their own project assurance. And if that is the case, then this makes sense, doesn't it? The project board and the project manager advised by them. Otherwise it's the project board and the project manager. Other folks who can offer advice about PRINCE2 tailoring will be project support roles, or if you have one, a centre of excellence. You may be familiar with the term a project office within an organisation. This is a halfway house, if you will, between project support and a centre of excellence, where the project office is filled by experienced staff who help support the administration of projects. However, this could be expanded so that they, for example, provide PRINCE2 training or other techniques used within the project management community. Now, when we come to look at the point where the project manager creates the next stage plan, the process used here is the managing a stage boundary process. I would advise all project managers to involve the specialist team as part of creating that next stage plan. Indeed, without them, it may be difficult for the project manager to produce the next stage plan. Why? Because the next stage plan will contain the work packages. And what are the timeframes for development of each product within the work package? What about the resources needed? What about the cost and so on? So it makes good sense when carrying out the PRINCE2 process of managing a stage boundary to include the specialist team and maybe others in helping to draft the next stage plan. And this point reinforces that thought, where team managers may suggest to the project manager any tailoring that would help them manage their work packages more effectively. Quite so that when the next stage plan is signed off, such tailoring ideas would have already been implemented. And I really should bring up environmental factors again. It's worth reminding you of the influence these have on any tailoring you perform on your project. Let's quickly list the key areas. The importance of the project within your organisation. And this does not necessarily have a direct bearing on the size or complexity of the project. A small organisation would see a medium-sized project, whatever that might mean, as being very large, and the converse is that a multinational might see a large project as being average, if you see the point I'm trying to make here. The geographical location. Have you ever run a project on an oil rig? But one of the individuals that I hired for one of my projects had done exactly that, and some of the environmental contexts that you had to take consideration of were quite scary, as you might imagine. A multi-organisation project, we've touched on that already, and why that might be difficult and why that needs special care, along with any corporate standards which need to be adhered to. Don't forget, when you're using external customers or suppliers, these too will be an environmental factor you need to consider. The maturity of the organisation, or perhaps the language that's used. I don't necessarily mean the dialect, if you will, but any special technical language or terminology. Whether the project's being run within a program, as I've discussed earlier, and any cultural factors. Working within Google or within an insurance company will need a completely different approach and will need to be factored into running such a project. And relating here to geographical location, another environmental factor might be local business practices.